where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and also columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Nana. The headlines this hour. NATO's Secretary-General says Turkey won't block Finland and Sweden's plans to join the alliance, and he's confident an agreement can be reached. His comments came after Finland confirmed its application for NATO membership. President Putin reiterated the move was a mistake but didn't repeat any threats. The Finnish president, Sauli Niinisto, says the decision shows democracy in his country is strong.
We have today a historic day. Finland will maximize its security, and that is not away from anybody.
Well, meanwhile, the head of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, called for more military support for Ukraine, saying he believes the country can win the war against Russia.
Russia's war in Ukraine is not going as Moscow had planned. They failed to take Kiev. They are pulling back from around Kharkiv. But Ukraine stands. NATO is stronger than ever. Europe and North America are solidly united. Ukraine can win this war.
Meanwhile, new video released by a pro-Russian separatist commander shows a shower of munitions falling over the Azovstal steelworks in the Ukrainian port city of Mariupol. It's not clear when the footage was taken. Ukraine says the site, where hundreds of fighters are still holed up weeks after the city fell to Russia, is being constantly bombarded. Here, the Prime Minister will urge Northern Ireland's politicians to get back to work after the DUP blocked the election of a Speaker in the Stormont Assembly last week. Boris Johnson's going to travel to Belfast tomorrow for a series of crisis talks with leaders. Government sources say he'll use a series of private meetings to say parties must come together if problems with the protocol are to be fixed. Nearly 8,000 people have crossed the English Channel and entered the UK this year. The latest Ministry of Defence figures show 13 boats carrying 167 people were intercepted yesterday alone. The Home Office is warning asylum seekers they could be flown to Rwanda under its new resettlement scheme, with flights expected to start in the coming months. NHS prescription charges in England will be frozen for the first time in 12 years to help ease the cost of living crisis. The Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, said the charges, which normally rise in line with inflation, will be held this year to put money back into people's pockets. The Health Department says the freeze will save people £17 million. The Prime Minister has praised Ukraine after winning last night's Eurovision Song Contest. Boris Johnson described the result as a reflection of talent, which also showed unwavering support for the country's fight for freedom. The folk rap group Kalush Orchestra performed Stefania, which topped the poll, while the UK's Sam Ryder finished second with his song Spaceman. Now, a British mountaineer has successfully completed his record-breaking 16th summit attempt of Mount Everest. 48-year-old Kenton Cool, what a name, reached the summit overnight, marking the highest number of climbs by any non-Sherpa. In his previous trips, he's been a guide to other well-known mountaineers, including Sir Ranulph Fiennes and the broadcaster Ben Fogle. You're with GB News. More news as it happens. Now it's time for Nana Akua.
So good afternoon. It's fast approaching 6 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Well, yesterday, Eurovision returned with a vengeance. Now, I usually watch it with the sound down just to see the ridiculous costumes people are wearing. Remember Conchita? The bloke with a beard, long-haired wig and a dress? He won in 2013. That's Austria's entry. Listening to it is often too painful, and yesterday's show, well, actually was quite good, although it didn't disappoint. To be fair, though, the standard has improved, which isn't difficult. Gone are the days when Brotherhood of Man, Katrina and the Waves, Bucks Fizz, that was the standard. Lately, though, we've entered some clangers. There was Nikki French with DJ Don't Play That Song Again in 2000. People took her very good advice and it wound up in 16th place with 28 points and was pretty much never heard again. Maybe with a title like that, we simply didn't want to win and foot the bill for the next one, which we would have had to do if she had done so. Then there was Cry Baby in 2003. We were all in tears when the result arrived. The UK got nil points. Do you remember Scooch in 2007, dressed as air stewards with their song Flying the Flag for You? Didn't somebody tell them the song was horrendous? Something must have gone wrong with the technicals on the day. I don't know whether they couldn't hear the backing track or the song was meant to be like that, but it was awful. Back then, we even had the advantage of singing in English, the language that in those days nearly all entries sang in. But somehow, we'd lost our way. People complained and said it was a political decision. Maybe, but we made it easy for them by entering some very rubbish songs. Now, I'm not saying that I can sing, I can't. That's why I wouldn't consider it. I can do Tina Turner's Private Dancer on karaoke, and that's because I have a deep voice and I sound like a man. So I was pleased to see us finally break this spell of, and let's be kind, call it bad luck, and see the UK TikTok star Sam Ryder with this song Spaceman come second. I was, of course, very happy that Ukraine won by the public vote. Perhaps this means that the world is finally falling back in love with us, or at least the EU. Maybe it will extend as far as them doing the sensible thing and ensuring that they come up to the table to talk about the Northern Ireland Protocol, which they could solve quite simply by enabling a free trade agreement with the UK, which is, in fact, more in their interest than ours, but favourable for all. Europe has sent a message to Vladimir Putin. Ukraine won, Russia nil. Stick that up your pipe and smoke it. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. Each Sunday at 5 o'clock in Outside, I'm joined by a celebrity, a former MP or someone who's had an extremely interesting career to take a look at life after the job. We'll talk highs and lows, lessons learned and what comes next on the Outside. And today, I'm very excited to say that I'll be joined in the studio by singer, actor and all-round superstar Claire Sweeney. Best known for playing the role of Lindsay Corkill, do you remember that, in the Channel 4 soap Brookie, as we all called it? Also joining me at 5 o'clock in the bookmark is best-selling author Bill Browder and his book Freezing Order. I can tell you now, I'm reading it. It is fantastic. And for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are the Conservatives the new high-tax party? The government have pledged spending packages of over £22 billion in 2023 to help ease the cost of living crisis. But where is the money coming from? Despite the speculation that Rishi Sunak might announce a wave of tax cuts to stave off a cabinet revolt, research shows 1 in 5 workers will be paying higher or top tax rates for the next general election. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are the Conservatives the new high-tax party? Coming up as well, Worldview. Don't forget to join us in that. We'll be talking Ukraine. Of course, naturally, we'll look at the Eurovision Song Contest, but Ukraine appears to have won the battle for Kharkiv as Russian forces retreat from the eastern city. That's on the way. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my fabulous panel, consultant editor at the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and also columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy. Right, So welcome both. Lovely to see you.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me, Andrew, as well. And Lizzie, she was here last week, so it's good to see her again. So, Andrew, I'm going to start with you. Eurovision, did you watch it?
I did. I was addicted. I was hooked. I've always liked it. Unlike often, like you, I would have the volume down, but actually I watched it all. I was determined to hear the British entry, and my God, it was good.
Yeah.
He can sing.
At last.
He can really sing.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely thrilled with the outcome. So the judges gave it to the UK, the audience, the public vote around Europe was always going to go for Ukraine, and quite right too. So they came first, we were second, and the best part, France and Germany last and second last. So Mr. Macron and the new German Chancellor, I really, really enjoyed that part of it.
So would you say it's political then?
Yes, of course. No doubt about
Of course it's political.
Of course it is. It really is political.
Eurovision has always been a place for other nations to vent against each other. We know this.
Yes.
Of course it's political, and last night showed it was political. I mean, in all other circumstances, we would have won.
Yeah.
But we don't begrudge Ukraine, and we're all together because that is a one-all sign to Putin to say we're all together against his illegal war.
Yeah, it's awful.
But I have to say, look, I mean, I've loved Eurovision from a little girl going through it all from, you know, remembering Bucks Fizz, as we just saw. You know, we've had Lulu. But Brotherhood of Man, would they be called Brotherhood of Man now? It would be personhood in person. We weren't allowed to say that. It's gone so woke. But I love the Eurovision, but well done to the UK. But will it be able to be hosted in the Ukraine? That's the thing.
I hope
will it be?
Well, he's talking, isn't he, the fabulous President Zelensky, the man who will win the Nobel Peace Prize, we hope. He's talking about putting it in Mariupol next year. What a wonderful, noble ambition. And it will be embarrassing for Putin, because Russians will think, why weren't we in it? The news is it is seeping into the Russian consciousness now. They've been turned into a pariah state. They can't take part in sporting events. They couldn't take part in Eurovision. And it's because of what their president has done in their name with his illegal war.
Exactly. But can I ask you this? I mean, Andrew, what do you think? Germany, France at the bottom. Is this a statement to say they're not happy with the EU? Or, you know, I mean, when have we been ever popular with Eurovision? We always get really low marks. Suddenly we're popular in Europe. The song was great.
Yeah, but the song...
But is it a sign that maybe people are looking at Boris thinking he's really done well with the Ukraine crisis?
The most popular leader in Ukraine after Zelensky is Boris Johnson. Streets are being named after him, and quite rightly too, because this government was there first. We were giving military aid to Ukraine a year ago, and France and Germany have been hopeless. Macron, the puffed-up, pompous Parisian, he was thinking he could negotiate with Putin. You can't negotiate with a psychopath and a liar. And Germany said they were going to send arms to Ukraine. All they've sent is 5,000 helmets.
Whilst they're still relying heavily on Russian oil and gas.
Exactly. But I think that was a real sign in last night's voting.
Yeah,
I really do, with them at the bottom.
Yeah.
And always, we are never popular in Europe. And suddenly, we nearly won it.
And we got quite a large... I listened out particularly for the public vote. We were nearly 200. We were one of the highest public votes. Moldova, of course, got a very good vote for a fantastic song, which the judges hated, but I rather like that song.
Do you think that the narrative is changing for the United Kingdom, and that people may be a little bit more giving towards us, especially now we've got the Northern Ireland Protocol, the deal that we're trying to sort of establish? What is your view?
I think it did help that the song was pretty good. And also, I don't do TikTok, but having 10 million followers on TikTok, as Sam Ryder did, helped a lot. So there's no doubt about that. If it had been one of those appalling songs we've had before, can anybody remember the last 3 or 4 years'
exactly.
song? It did help.
Cry, baby.
Well, yeah.
We've had some dreadful ones, I'll be honest. We really have. I mean, God.
The thing is, we are the country that have brought the Rolling Stones. We've brought, you know, some incredible bands, but yet somehow...
With Eurovision, we don't do it. Look at Genesis,
They've punished us for Brexit, of course they have. But I think they're beginning to realise...
I think now there's a rebellion with it all, and I think that showed in the marking last night. I really do feel that. I thought that was very political. And it is political, Eurovision. People say it isn't, but it so is, and last night showed it was. But we all standing by the Ukraine. I think it's wonderful that they won.
And that lead singer, not the man with the irritating pink hat on, he had the most amazing eyes, and his voice was so moving. And every time I heard his voice, I thought, how many of his own family or friends have been touched by this terrible tragedy in Ukraine?
Well, see, when I was watching it, I felt like the song sounded like they were crying.
Yeah.
In a way, it sounded like they were...
I know.
The song sounded like tears to me.
Yes.
And I watched it and thought, actually, that is quite an emotional song. I could feel the emotion from them. And I think when a song does that to you, that's what you call a
And
song.
one member of the extended band stayed behind in Ukraine to fight.
To fight.
Amazing. So they were fighting their own fight on the stage, on an international stage, with a 200 million audience. Up yours, Putin. 200 million people saw Ukraine win.
A clear message to Putin last night.
Very important they won.
I mean, globally, unbelievably.
I'm so proud of people, and I'm really glad that they won. They deserved it in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, Sam, as you said, Sam has like millions of followers on TikTok.
Yeah, he's got plenty of time to come.
See, this mistake we've often made, I think, in this country is that we thought, well, we'll just do some sort of weirdo song that from some people who don't normally sing or don't have any real... We'll put that there, it'll be fine. But it's not fine.
No, but I have to say, my friend Rylan was there who does the commentary on it, and he said Sam was so professional. Everyone loved him from the start. And if it, for the situation, we would have won it. But no one begrudges Ukraine winning.
He's got years,
but it was
he's got
incredible.
plenty of time. I'm afraid Ukraine doesn't have plenty of time, which is why they had to win.
He had to win. They had to win. I'm very pleased. Well, listen, if you just tuned in, where have you been? This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. I've got my superstar panel, Andrew Pearson and Lindsay Cundy. After the break, it'll be time for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, are the Conservatives the new high-tax party? The government have pledged spending packages of over £22 billion in 2023, the idea being to help ease the cost of living crisis. But where is the money coming from? There's been speculation that Rishi Sunak might announce a wave of tax cuts, but when will those come, and will they be too late? There's been research by the pensions consultancy firm LCP that's predicted that 1 in 5 will be paying higher top-rate tax by the next election. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are the Conservatives the new high-tax party? Send me your thoughts. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell me what you think. You can also tweet at GBNews, and there currently is a poll up right now asking, are the Conservatives the new high-tax party? Cast that vote now, but first, let's get some weather.
Well, looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK looking cloudy at times with scattered, heavy, possibly thundery showers, but also some sunny spells. Let's take a look then at the detail. In the southwest, mostly dry in the evening, plenty of warm sunny spells. Cloudier though in the east, where the odd sharp shower is possible. The southeast, cloudy, warm but muggy. There'll be a few showers with further heavy, thundery ones arriving from the south. And South Wales, cloudy, thin outbreaks of showery rain, turning heavy at times, also feeling rather muggy, hill fog likely too. It's a similar story in the Midlands as we end the day, a rather cloudy picture with showers which could be heavy at times, muggy here as well with some murky conditions over the hills. And looking at the northeast of England, ending the day mostly dry but also rather cloudy, bright or sunny spells and an isolated shower possible towards the south. Little changes in southern Scotland, remaining mostly dry but rather cloudy, the odd shower possible with some brighter spells, feeling warm as well for most. And rather cloudy but pleasantly warm across Northern Ireland, although some brighter spells likely, mostly dry with an isolated shower possible. So a muggy feeling then tonight, especially in the south where it'll be subject to heavy thundery showers, and that's how the UK weather is shaping up today.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon, welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. For the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. As ever, the show is all about opinion, mine, yours and theirs. And we love to hear what you have to say. So before the break, we were talking about the whole Eurovision Song Contest and wondering what your thoughts are. Keep your thoughts coming. But for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are the Conservatives the new high tax party? As the cost of living crisis rages on, it's been announced today that prescription charges will be frozen for the first time in 12 years to help put money back in people's pockets. People have been forced to tighten their budgets due to rising food and energy prices, with inflation soaring to its highest level in 30 years. The government have pledged spending packages of over £22 billion in 2023 to help ease the crisis. But where is the money coming from? So Rishi Sunak, there's been speculation that he might soon announce a wave of tax cuts in an attempt to stop a cabinet revolt, after research by the pensions consultancy firm LCP suggested that 1 in 5 workers will be paying higher or top-rate tax by the next general election. Some would say that the Tories are giving in one hand and taking with the other, and using things like free prescriptions as a smokescreen to disguise sneaky tax rises. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are the Conservatives the new high tax party? Well, I'm joined now by the Director of Tax Justice UK, Robert Palmer. No, not the musician. Robert, welcome. You must get that all the time. Do you get that all the time?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good, thank you. Right, so what do you think about all this, Robert? The Conservatives, I mean, they're beginning to sound like the Labour Party. Are they on some secret mission to raise tax constantly?
Well, it seems, pretty out of character. You have Rishi Sunak and other Conservatives constantly talking about how they like low taxes and they want to cut taxes. Whereas in practice, what we've seen over the last couple of years is Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson have increased taxes by more than, almost any other chancellor over the last few decades. And it's because we've got really low levels of growth and lots of pressure on public spending after a decade of austerity. So there's huge pressure from the public, huge political pressure to spend. And that's meant that Rishi Sunak has ended up increasing taxes. Now, I think increasing taxes is always a political choice, and what taxes you increase is also a political choice. And so we've seen things like national insurance go up, and that is something that is paid by most workers, whereas there are still lots of loopholes. If you have lots of wealth and you're really rich, you can still pay low levels of tax. So tax, very political issue, very political choices about which taxes you increase, which ones you drop.
But, Robert, does it make sense to you, because I'm struggling with it, that if you wanted to, because the economy was actually growing just before all of this, does it make sense to you that you would restrict the flow of expenditure by increasing taxation? So therefore, the people who would be spending, it reduces their discretionary income. Once you've done that, then, of course, they'll stop paying things like Netflix, so other businesses start to suffer. They then tighten their belts, start to reduce their workforce, so that starts to create unemployment, and then they increase their prices to make up for the shortfall. Does it make sense to you that increasing taxes, because if you increase tax, it's commonly known that you'll shrink the economy? I don't understand the thinking behind this.
So, a lot of economists were critical of Rishi Sunak saying we must increase taxes. And they were saying, actually, this is the wrong time to increase taxes. We had a recession caused by the pandemic. We have a huge cost of living crisis at the moment, really hitting people's pockets. And so big questions, as you say, is this the right time to raise taxes, and who are you raising taxes on? I think there are political questions about when and who you raise taxes on. And it doesn't feel like the right thing to do. It feels as though Rishi Sunak, on the one hand, is like, I want to cut taxes, I want to be a Conservative chancellor, and yet on the other feels this pressure to bring in the money. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that growth is so low at the moment.
He just looks really like he knows what he's doing, but I don't think he does. What about the Labour Party then? Have you heard anything they're saying? Have they mentioned much? I know about their talk of a windfall tax, but have they talked about anything else?
So really, the Labour Party are keeping their gunpowder dry when it comes to tax rises. I mean, I think it is almost inevitable that they're going to want to go into the next election promising more spending on whatever their top priority is. And that means there will probably be some form of tax rises. But here it comes to the questions about who they increase taxes on. And there's been some mood music coming from Rachel Reeves, from other people, from Keir Starmer, talking about some of the loopholes that mean that wealthy people pay lower levels of tax. You can look at things like capital gains tax to bring in more money. But at the moment, Labour has said very, very little about what its tax plans would be beyond relatively small things like a windfall tax or revisiting business rates.
I'd like to hear what they have to say about it, because I'm curious as to where they would go. Robert Palmer, thank you so much. He's a director for the Tax Justice UK. Really good to talk to you. Right, so I'm now joined by a Conservative MP for Thirsk and Malton, Kevin Hollingrake. Kevin, welcome to the programme. Now, I want to ask, what do you make of all of this? Are you supporting, you're Conservative, are you supporting the idea that we need to raise the taxes in the way we are?
Yes, I am, because we're not a party of high taxes. We are a party that balances the books. And public spending, both on the pandemic and afterwards, in terms of catching up, extra money for the NHS, for example, is huge amount of money. £400 billion went in to support businesses and jobs through the pandemic. And now you've got this catch-up in terms of the NHS, lots of operations required, lots of scans, those kind of things, and it needs to be paid for. If you're going to increase public spending, as we are doing, you've got to pay for it. So I do support it, but I also support what the Chancellor's done in that the things he has brought into place, such as the higher tax thresholds on low earners, means that 70% of workers don't pay any more tax. In fact, they pay less tax. So he's put, I think at the spring statement, he put in about £21 billion of support through those thresholds and cutting fuel duty, for example, and support for energy bills. So there's a huge amount of money gone in here to try and make it easier for the people who were worst affected, those people on low incomes.
Well, I mean, you say that, but it doesn't really sound good enough to most people, and it, in a way, doesn't make, to me, just as I studied economics, it just doesn't make sense to me that you would increase those sort of taxes. What about the energy companies? What about the windfall taxes? Even the energy companies, and the boss of BP himself has said that it won't make any difference, and it's a tax on their additional profits in any case. So all that'll do is it'll end up being in the shareholders' pockets, which is fine, but there were plenty of businesses that benefited because of the government rules during the lockdown, like companies like Amazon or companies like Deliveroo and Just Eat. And I mean, I don't understand why these companies, through legislation, made money and because of extraordinary circumstances, and they just seem to be being let off.
Well, OK, let's look at two different things. Windfall tax on energy companies. I personally support a windfall tax. But as the previous commentator said, it brings in a relatively small amount of money, probably maybe 2 or 3, I think Labour mentioned £2 billion. But the Chancellor's put in £21 billion at the spring statement and before with the energy announcement. But I do support it, because I don't think it's right that anybody makes excess profits when other people are struggling based around energy. So in terms of things like Amazon, this government's done more than any other government to tackle the underpayment of taxes by Amazon. It's brought in something called the digital services tax, which put a direct tax on Amazon in terms of their turnover, and the diverted profit tax, where companies like Amazon and Google and others that were moving their income around, trying to avoid taxes. This government's done those things. We need to go a lot further, and I'm a big advocate for that. But there has been a lot of action in those areas already.
Well, you think they could at least apply that retrospectively then and get some money back. What about the fraudulent loans and things like that? Because, as you said, a windfall tax would only be a couple of billion. But if you add up these couple of billions, which are only little billions, they make up a lot of billions, which is what they're doing by taking money off us, the consumer, who would actually grow the economy. Look, the problem is if you reduce the amount of spending, you reduce the level of tax that you receive, and that's clear. So what about the fraud then? Where does that come into?
Quite right. I agree with what you're saying. We should be careful what we spend. There's no doubt about it. But remember, lots of businesses were crying out for support during the crisis. If you look at what the banks are saying in terms of fraud, it's about 1 or 2% of the loans that were granted. So 99% of loans were given to bona fide businesses. But we should obviously minimise fraud where we can. Of course, some mistakes were made, but we're trying to roll these schemes out very, very quickly at a very difficult time. I do find it a bit ironic, actually, that lots of people who are now saying, oh my God, all this fraud, were the ones, particularly in the opposition, were the ones saying, well, this money you're giving to businesses should be grants, not loans. Well, if they'd been grants, you wouldn't get any of the money back. So again,
but they weren't.
Probably something like 98% of the money should come back, according to what the banks are saying right now.
But as you said, if they were grants, yes, they may have said that, but they weren't grants, they were loans, and people are getting away with it. And you look, I mean, if you bought something and then somebody said, well, it's not really working out, it's dodgy, we're not going to give you your money back for it, you just have to keep it, you wouldn't be happy with that. So as a consumer and somebody who is, somebody who's actually paying out money to, from my taxes to pay for all these mistakes, I'm getting a bit annoyed. I'm looking at my tax take and thinking, this is stagflation for starters. You've got things like stagflation where you put yourself, you end up in a slightly higher tax bracket and then your take becomes less than it would have been had you been in the lower one. This is, all these things that are going on and people, there doesn't seem to be a decent answer. But it's really good to hear.
I agree. I agree with your point in terms of some of the issues people are experiencing, and the cost of living crisis is a real crisis, and we've got to help particularly those on low incomes. I don't believe there are not answers to your questions. The vast majority of that money was lent in good faith and borrowed in good faith. So I think that some of that has been somewhat overblown in terms of likelihood, how much this will certainly go in fraud, which would probably, I say, 1 to 2%. But we definitely need to look at the cost of living crisis. We need to try and reduce the impact on people, particularly those that are hardest hit, and usually that's people on lowest incomes. So we absolutely need to be vigilant and to be willing to roll out further support, as the Chancellor's committed to do at the earliest possible moment.
Well, listen, Kevin, it's really good to talk to you. That's Kevin Hollingwake, MP, the Conservatives from Thirsk and Malton. Right, if you just tuned in, where on earth have you been? It's coming up to 33 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, after the break, we're going to continue with our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, are the Conservatives the new high-tax party? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and also columnist and broadcaster, Lizzie Cundy. And stay tuned, because at 5 o'clock I'll be joined by singer, actor and all-round superstar Claire Sweeney, best known for playing the role of Lindsay Cargill. Do you remember that? Channel 4 soap, Brookside. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. The top headlines this hour. NATO's Secretary-General says Turkey isn't looking to block Finland and Sweden's plans to join the alliance, and he's confident an agreement can be reached. His comments follow Finland confirming it will apply for NATO membership. Sweden's ruling Democratic Party has now said it wants to follow suit. Jens Stoltenberg also believes Ukraine can win the war against Russia.
Russia's war in Ukraine is not going as Moscow had planned. They failed to take Kiev. They are pulling back from around Kharkiv. But Ukraine stands. NATO is stronger than ever. Europe and North America are solidly united. Ukraine can win this war.
Meanwhile, new video released by pro-Russian separatist commanders shows a shower of munitions falling over the Azov Steel works in the Ukrainian port city of Mariupol. It's not yet clear when the footage was taken, but Ukraine says the site, where hundreds of fighters are still holed up, is constantly being bombarded. Nearly 8,000 people have crossed the English Channel and entered the United Kingdom this year. The latest Ministry of Defence figures show 13 boats carrying 167 people were intercepted just yesterday. The Home Office is warning asylum seekers they could be flown to Rwanda under its new resettlement scheme, with flights expected to start in the coming months. And the British mountaineer Kenton Cool has successfully completed his record-breaking 16th summit of Mount Everest. The 48-year-old reached the summit overnight, marking the highest number of climbs by any non-Sherpa. Good for him. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, and we're back with Nana Akua in just a moment.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So welcome on board. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now it is time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are the Conservatives the new high tax party? We'd love to hear your thoughts, by the way, so do get them into us. As the cost of living crisis rages on, it's been announced today that prescription charges will be frozen for the first time in 12 years to help put money back in people's pockets. The only slight oversight is that most people who don't pay them are those who aren't earning enough anyway. So it's not really going to affect or help out the people who in the middle there, is it really? Inflation is soaring to its highest level in 30 years, and people are being forced to tighten their budgets to compensate for rising food and energy prices. Now, the government has pledged spending packages of over $22 billion in 2023 to help ease the crisis. But where are they going to get that money from? Rishi Sunak apparently will be announcing a wave of tax cuts to stave off the Cabinet's revolt after there's been research by the pensions consultancy firm LCP. Now, this research suggested that 1 in 5 workers will be paying higher or top-rate tax by the next general election. So are the Tories giving with one hand and taking from with the other? Things like free prescriptions seem to be a smokescreen for sneakily raising taxes. So for this debate this hour, I'm asking, are the Conservatives the new high tax party? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and also columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy. Very serious face there, Andrew. It's the Conservatives. What are they doing?
Look, I'm very disappointed.
What are they doing?
No other country in Europe is putting up taxes except this Conservative government. Now, they took a lot of people out of national insurance, to be fair. People earning up to £12,000 no longer pay national insurance, but far more were brought into national insurance. It's raising about £12 billion, which allegedly goes to cut waiting lists in the NHS. A lot of it will disappear in bureaucracy, in wage increases, and then we hear they're going to freeze prescription charges. £17 million that cost. The rise in national insurance will raise £12 billion. We should not be taxing people more when they're facing the worst cost of living crisis in my lifetime. In my lifetime, and I lived through the 1970s when inflation was rampant, 25%. We had the 3-day week. It was a terrible time. Are we really turning the clock back there? Inflation's heading into double figures. There's a simple thing they could have done. They could have cut the bloated overseas aid budget, which is £14 billion. Right. Give the money where it's badly needed, but we're wasting billions there. I know it's a cliche. Charity does begin at home. I'd far rather that money was helping pensioners who can't afford to put their heating on. People like Elsie, who Boris was challenged about, who gets on the bus to keep warm because she can't afford to put the heating on. We've got to start cutting taxes. Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, has got to prove he's a Conservative, because everything he's doing at the moment strikes me that he isn't. And don't forget the other thing they did, really crafty. In April, you'd have expected with inflation the amount where you start to pay income tax to rise. But he froze the personal allowances, which is bringing loads more people into the high rate of tax, which means police sergeants are now going to be paying 40p in the pound income tax. So are nursing sisters. That isn't right.
Lizzie.
Boris, if you're listening, kick your Chancellor into touch. In fact,
rid of him.
get rid of him now, because people are desperate. They're in desperate situations, don't know whether to heat or eat. These are poor families that are needing our help now, and we need to do something, and I think we need to do this windfall tax. And why and what and why are we waiting for it? It needs to be done immediately. I really do think so. And I'm absolutely appalled to hear today that Liz Truss is looking to buy this £20 million diplomatic home in Manhattan.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Where they already have 3 other places to entertain, another party house. I mean, have they lost touch with what's going on in our country? I mean, I'm sorry, there they are, the Chancellor, them all. They can, you know, kids are probably going to private schooling. Many can't buy the school uniform, can't buy food for their children. I think it's a disgrace. I was absolutely appalled by that today. Buying jets, yachts, you know, what to entertain, to look like the, you know, the Great Britain.
And here's
what, do you not agree with me?
I know,
Andrew,
I do. It's timing is everything. Here's what Labour are going to do probably in the next few days. They're going to table a motion in favour of a one-off windfall tax on the energy giants, which would generate £6 billion one-off. Who wouldn't agree with it? Now, we keep hearing Boris might like it and the Chancellor might like it, and the voters will be massively behind it. So will the Lib Dems.
But why aren't they doing it
Do you
now?
know why? I know why they're doing it, because they don't want to think, oh, the Labour Party thought of it first, we didn't think of it, and we said we weren't going to do it, but now we sound like we're behaving like the Labour Party, and it's like, just get on with it. We don't care who does it. And whoever does it will be the right...
People forget this. In the 1980s, the best British Prime Minister in the 20th century, in my view, if you take Winston Churchill out, Margaret Thatcher introduced 2 windfall taxes. One was on the banks and one was on the energy companies. If she could do it, and nobody doubted her radical tax-cutting zeal, why can't this government?
My father worked on the advertising campaign, Labour isn't working, for Saatchi and Saatchi. Let me tell you, Labour isn't working now. And I was so, appalled to see Ed Miliband today bleating on, saying, you know, Starmer is so honourable and he's this great man. I'm sorry, and what are their tax... What are they going to do for the tax situation? Surely they should... You know, he has got nothing to say. And how can he say this man is honourable? Let me tell you, he will get a fine and he will have to go.
Well, I hope so.
He will.
Well, actually, I could tell you a lot of Tory MPs I speak to, they don't want Keir Starmer to resign because he's such a dud. He's so uncharismatic and boring. He's had 2 years to electrify the electorate and it hasn't happened. And they think what might happen is Durham police will say, yes, you've broken the law, but we don't fine retrospectively, so no fines. He'll say, oh, I'm not being fined, I don't have to go. And then he stays and he's a lame duck. And that's the worst of all worlds. And that means they keep the lovely Angela Rayner, deputy leader.
Do you think that the Labour Party is that stupid to keep him, though?
Yeah.
Actually, don't answer that.
The Tories are ruthless with failing leaders. Ask Mrs Thatcher, ask them all. Ask Theresa May, talking of failing leaders, and a boring leader. The Labour Party have stuck with useless leaders for years. They should have got rid of Ed Miliband. We should never picked him in the first place.
I don't know why they didn't pick David.
The brother would have been amazing. No, Andy Burnham,
and they stuck with Jeremy Corbyn.
Andy Burnham, I said that last week.
The other day, he said he's not going to do it.
I love his eyes, but you know what? I love everything he says, and I think
He's the king of the North.
He is king of the North, but he needs to be king of the Labour Party.
He's not gonna do it.
And I'm sorry, if Starmer loves Labour, step down.
He's
step
never
down
going to
now.
step down. Look, the lies that he told, and they were lies. I mean, you can't say, oh, somebody wasn't there. They were.
Yeah.
Look, she wasn't.
Apparently,
she
it's a
was
genuine
there.
mistake that Angela Rayner wasn't there. Well, if they'd asked her when they were
say
asked,
that?
she would have said, I was there.
Don't you
They
think,
only
yeah.
admitted she was there when the Daily Mail, my paper, showed a video where she was quite clearly at the party.
She was there. But what upset me with him is the way he went on about Partygate to Boris. Such a hypocrite. And I'm sorry, I can't stand the
Well,
man.
I'm slightly
major
glad.
hypocrite.
I'm slightly glad that he went on like that because he's made himself look like such a fool.
He has.
Which is fantastic, really. But unfortunately, that doesn't help us out with the cost of living.
No,
Because
it
we
doesn't. No, it
seem to
doesn't.
have a lot of people at the heads of government that don't seem to be listening.
If they don't get this right, Nana, they'll be out, the Tories. Simple as that.
Yeah.
80-seat majority or not, they'll be out because the public will vote with their pockets because they're really, really hurting.
But Labour should be surging ahead now. This is their time. They're at, what are they, 5% in the polls?
it should be 25.
They should be surging ahead. They're not.
Well, they're not saying what
They're
they will
not.
do. What worries
They won't say
what
because they
worries
don't
me-
know.
What worries me is that they're not saying it. So even though people say, oh, we're sick of the Tories, that's fine. But what's the alternative? And I wish the alternative would actually speak up because potentially people would be prepared to vote for them, but we don't know what we're voting for. So I'm afraid I'm not prepared to do it.
And the windfall tax, they can only do it once. It's one-off.
Well, we shall see. What are your thoughts? Keep your thoughts coming. We'd love to hear what you think. This show is obviously nothing without you, so we'd love you to join us. Make sure you get your emails in gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews. I think it's now time to welcome one of our great British voices. Your opportunity to be on the show. Tell us what you really think about the topics we're discussing. Chris is here from London. Chris Davis, welcome. You look like you've got two little ears where your head is positioned perfectly there. Chris, talk to me then. What are you thinking about all of this?
Well, the simple answer is yes, they are now the high tax party. They are no longer a Conservative or even a Unionist party, ask Northern Ireland, and we are all getting poorer. And it's strange, Nana, but I have to quote Siobhan McDonough in the Commons from March. We have a tax burden rising to the highest level since the 40s. We have the worst fall in living standards since the 50s, public sector net debt at the highest level since the 60s, and real earnings growth facing the largest one-year drop since the 70s. It doesn't add up to a hill of beans, does it? So, look, problems. Consumer spending is crashing because people have got less to spend. Personal allowances are frozen. National insurance has gone up, and there's not going to be a rebate on that until July when people get the increase up to the personal allowance limit. We've still got VAT on domestic energy, despite it being a Brexit commitment to take it off. We've still got this ridiculous renewals levy on electricity. We now have wage growth that is 4 or 5 or even 6% behind what is commonly quoted as inflation. In reality, it's much worse than that. And we have stagflation for the next 2 years. So what's the way forward? The first thing is to say zero-based budgets on all government departments. Forget what's gone before, start from naught, justify your spending. Stop soaking the stretch middle because there's only so much elasticity there. To me, stop blaming the Bank of England, give control back to the Chancellor of Monetary Policy and the inflationary target because fundamentally they're not independent. There is tens, if not hundreds of billions of waste in government, the civil service, the public sector, the House of Lords, the NHS. There are plenty of areas where we could reduce taxation, reduce public spending, increase revenue to the exchequer. If you cut taxes, the Laffer curve says you will increase the amount of money you get in.
Well, that's what I said from the beginning, Chris, but unfortunately, you and I are both cleverer than them, sadly. Chris Davis, thank you so much for joining me.
Cheers,
well,
Nana.
Let's come back to my panel and see what he said. He made perfect sense, didn't he? You see, that's
disagree with any of it.
Yeah.
You see, but I don't understand why the Chancellor of the Exchequer is unable to see that. I think, do you remember that show years ago where they got some MPs to live on the minimum wage?
Yeah.
I'd like to see them do that again.
But he's too busy doing up his 100K
No, I want him to do that. I want him to do
I
that, so
know.
you
And then
understand.
you see the Chancellor walking up Downing Street in training shoes that cost £400. Tone deaf. Mind you, we saw Keir Starmer in training shoes, £300, tone deaf too. But this is the highest tax burden. We've never paid this much tax since just after the war. And we were paying a lot of tax just after the war to rebuild Britain and also to create the welfare state and the NHS. How has a Conservative government got us into this? Look, we had COVID. We know we had COVID and all that problem, but we're spending money where we shouldn't and we could... I'm not a man for great for borrowing, but to be taxing people at this time, to tax them more, it's political suicide, and it's causing real harm to families.
It is. It's an absolute economic crisis we're in, and he needs to act now. And Boris, I think he needs to get shot of him. He really does need to get shot of him. I'm sorry. And at first, I mean, he was giving out with all the money through the pandemic. You know, I mean, Victoria Beckham's company was furloughed.
I know.
I mean, it's such a joke.
It is. Well, actually, Rishi's the share that his wife has a company that his wife has a share in. They awarded many of the contracts. I mean, it's some of the contracts and got, I think it was something like half a million or something, or $500 million or something. I mean, it's ridiculous. But listen, today I'm asking other Conservatives, the new high tax party. Lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Let's see what Albert says. Albert, he says, we always used to moan at the Labour Party saying that they were taxing and the tax, borrow and spend party. The Tories are now just as bad. But they are both the heads and tails of the same bent, incompetent coin. Yes, I hear you. That Ollie says, Sunak and the Treasury are making a fortune on fuel VAT. Don't expect tax cuts until just before an election is due. Crystal says, if tax cuts only help taxpayers, what about pensioners? Sky has said, I suspect Labour and Lib Dems could be much higher tax parties. Currently, Tories are the high tax party for supposedly Conservative government. Something does need to happen on cost of living, though, and tax breaks are a step in the right direction. Janet says, no, the global situation has caused all crises in the UK. Can't blame the Tories for that. Well, listen, I think you're slightly wrong there in terms of, look at the amount of money they're wasting. Seriously. Maggie says, you can ask this if any other party would be lowering taxes. We're not restricted to only one party that wants to stick its hands over, I can't read today, ever deeper into our pockets. A new high tax party, not the new high tax party. Right, let's have a look at the poll. Throughout the show I'm asking, are the Conservatives the new high tax party? And currently, guess what, how many? 70% of you say yes. Right, well, you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, Ukraine appears to have won the battle for Kharkiv as Russian forces retreated from around the eastern city due to an apparent lack of troop reinforcements. Foreign Affairs analyst James Marlowe will explain more in Worldview. First, though, let's get some weather.
Definitely a change in the weather picture for us across the UK. Cloudy at times, scattered heavy, possibly thundery showers and sunny spells. Let's home in on the detail. So in the southwest, mostly dry tonight, plenty of warm spells. Cloudier in the east, the odd sharp shower as well. The southeast, cloudy, warm, muggy, a few showers with further heavy thundery ones arriving for the south as well. Let's look at South Wales. Well, that too will be cloudy with outbreaks of showery rain, turning heavy at times, also feeling rather muggy with some hill fog likely. And a similar story as well for the Midlands as we end the day. A cloudy picture with showers which could be heavy at times. Muggy here as well, murky conditions over the hills. And the northeast of England ending the day mostly dry but also rather cloudy. Bright or sunny spells and an isolated shower also possible towards the south of that region. Little changes in southern Scotland, mostly dry there, but rather cloudy too. The odd shower possible, along with some brighter spells if you're lucky, feeling very warm for most, and a rather cloudy but pleasantly warm evening across Northern Ireland. Brighter spells likely, mostly dry here, only an isolated shower likely in the area. So a muggy feeling tonight following for many across the UK, especially in the south. Further heavy, thundery showers for us all. And that's how the weather's looking overnight and into tomorrow morning.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. And now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle, and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So if you've just joined me, where have you been? I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, we've got loads on the way. Don't forget, Claire Sweeney will be joining me just after 5 o'clock in Outside, where we'll be chatting about her career. Remember, she was in Brookside. And also later on, Bill Browder, in his fabulous book, Frozen Order, he'll also be in the studio talking to me about that incredible book. But as you know, his book's all about Russia and the situation with Vladimir Putin. And right now it's time for Worldview. So Ukraine appears to have won the battle for Kharkiv as Russian forces retreated from around the eastern city due to an apparent lack of troop reinforcements. Ukrainian forces launched a counter-offensive to seize back Russian-controlled strategic towns in the east of the country, threatening Moscow's attempts to control the Donbass region. So let's find out more. I'm joined now by Foreign Affairs analyst James Marlowe. James, this is almost like a very positive thing for Ukraine that they've managed to push back Russia from Kharkiv. What does that signify?
And that includes the towns and the villages around Kharkiv as well. It signifies that the Russians need reinforcements down in the south, and as a result, the intense fighting is really growing today, as it was last night, to get control of Donbass. Amazingly, Mariupol still has not fallen yet. But this was something that was predicted anyway, that the troops, Russian troops, tanks, artillery, would start to move from the centre to the south of the country in order to start to get control and to start to annex these parts in the south of Ukraine. Let me just update you also on Finland and Sweden. It's not clear, as far as I understand, whether Finland's application to join NATO has actually been submitted yet, or whether it's going to be done in the next couple of days. What we do know is, of course, it is going to happen, despite the fact that Russia has said, you better not do it. But the Finns are saying, we are going to do this. Now, why this is unprecedented is because that Finland has been independent, has not taken any sides since 1917. Now, 1917 was, of course, the Russian Revolution, when the Tsar fell and the Bolsheviks came to power under Lenin. Trotsky was also supposed to be in power, but he ended up with an axe in the back of his head. So Lenin led this, and that's when Finland decided to say, we don't want to get involved in either conflict whatsoever. Now, if it's to be believed that the Swedes will follow in the next few days to join NATO, an organisation that was set up in April the 4th, 1949, and let's remember why the United States and Canada and the West set it up. It was concerned that the Soviet Union was expanding communism and taking over countries, and therefore it wanted to set up a defensive mechanism whereby it would protect those countries that was not coming under the influence of the Soviet Union at that time. The Soviet Union, of course, has fallen since, but NATO still stands. This is what always got Putin's back up as such.
Yeah, but so what? It's not up to him whether other countries join NATO or not. I find it ridiculous that people are kowtowing to this man. Oh, well, he said you're encroaching on his border. Even the Vatican weren't prepared to completely condemn him. And I've been reading the Pope, they asked the Pope to try and do something to get him to listen. And even the Vatican weren't prepared to condemn him because they said, well, the West has sort of created the situation by encroaching on the borders of Vladimir Putin, as though he's allowed. It's like somebody coming into your house and telling you, you can't go there in your house or do that or do that. Why is he allowed to dictate in any way?
Well, the reason why this is a concern is because if you listen to Estonia, their military, their government as well, they are really concerned that the Russians are going to take Estonia. What's taking place in the last few days is serious NATO operations inside Lithuania and Latvia, 3 small countries right on the border with Russia. Again, they feel that they're under threat from Russia.
Well,
this is just 50 miles away from Russia itself, and this is where these NATO operations are taking place. Plus, you've got, as we said, Finland, Sweden. Sweden has been neutral since the early 1800s. It's unbelievable how all of a sudden their people are now supporting, we better join NATO because we are really concerned of a possible Russian invasion. So I think what Putin is thinking of, this is going to wind out for a long, long time, a year plus, and it's every single person is going to be affected around the world, meaning economically, food-wise, prices and energy.
Interesting stuff. Well, listen, thank you so much for that. That's James Marlowe. He's the Foreign Affairs Analyst. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. More to come in the next hour. Right, so you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. Right, so we've got loads of stuff coming up. My panel will be here as well. We'll be chatting about lots of things. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. The news at 5 o'clock. As you've been hearing, NATO's Secretary-General says Turkey isn't looking to block Finland and Sweden's plans to join the alliance, and he's confident an agreement can be reached. Jens Stoltenberg's comments came after Finland confirmed its plan to apply for NATO membership. Sweden's ruling Democratic Party says it wants to follow suit in the wake of Russia's war in Ukraine. The Finnish president, Sauli Niinisto, says the decision shows democracy in his country is strong.
We have today a historic day. Finland will maximize its security, and that is not away from anybody.
Well, the head of NATO also called for more military support for Ukraine, saying he believes the country can win the war.
Russia's war in Ukraine is not going as Moscow had planned. They failed to take Kiev. They are pulling back from around Kharkiv. But Ukraine stands. NATO is stronger than ever. Europe and North America are solidly united. Ukraine can win this war.
Meanwhile, new video released by a pro-Russian separatist commander shows a shower of munitions falling over the Azovstal steelworks in the Ukrainian port city of Mariupol. It's not clear when the footage was taken, but Ukraine says the site, where hundreds of fighters are still holed up weeks after the city fell to Russia, is being constantly bombarded. Nearly 8,000 people have crossed the English Channel and entered the United Kingdom this year alone. The latest Ministry of Defence figures show 13 boats carrying 167 people were intercepted yesterday. The Home Office is warning asylum seekers they could be flown to Rwanda under its new resettlement scheme, with flights expected to start in the coming months. NHS prescription charges in England will be frozen for the first time in 12 years to help with the cost of living crisis. The Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, said the charges, which normally rise in line with inflation, will be held this year to put money back into people's pockets. And the Prime Minister's praised Ukraine for winning the Eurovision Song Contest last night. Boris Johnson described the result as a reflection of talent, which also showed unwavering support for the country's fight for freedom. The folk rap group Kalush Orchestra performing Stefania, which topped the poll. The UK's Sam Ryder finishing second with his song Spaceman. Now, a British mountaineer has successfully completed his record-breaking 16th summit of Mount Everest. 48-year-old Kenton Cool reached the summit overnight, marking the highest number of climbs by any non-Sherpa. In his previous trips, he's been a guide to other well-known mountaineers, including Serena Fines and the broadcaster Ben Fogle. You're with GB News, more news as it happens. Now it's time for Nana Akua.
So it is coming up to 5 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. For the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and also columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy. Still to come each Sunday at 5 in Outside. I'm joined by a celebrity, a former MP, or someone who's had an extremely interesting career to take a look at life after the job. We talk highs, lows and lessons learned and what comes next on the outside. In just a moment, I'll be joined in the studio by singer, actor and all-round superstar Claire Sweeney to talk about her latest adventure in our proud Cabaret All-Stars. Also coming up, it's the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should natural gas be reclassified as green energy? Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng wants the drilling of natural gas to be referred to as environmentally sustainable. But many experts claim gas to be a transition fuel towards lower carbon economies, as it emits half as much as coal and 30% less than oil. But as a non-renewable energy source, a bit like nuclear, can you really call it green? For the Great British Debate this hour. So I'm asking, should natural gas be reclassified as green energy? Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. So good afternoon. If you've just tuned in, where on earth have you been? It's time for Outside. Now today I'm very excited because I'm joined by actress Claire Sweeney. Now she's a singer, a dancer, TV presenter, best known for her role as Lindsay Cargill in Channel 4's Brookside. Do you remember that? Brookside, what a show. I used to love that. Didn't somebody end up underneath the patio? After many successful stints on the West End, she's doing something little bit different. She's starring as the headline act in Proud Cabaret All-Stars, launching at Proud Embankment. Now, Claire is the latest celebrity to lead this all-star cast of spectacular acrobatic circuses and fire-breathing acts and loads of jaw-dropping feats of death-defying skills by a host of burlesque beauties. Look at her, she looks fabulous. Make sure you can have a look at that on the app, on the GB News app, or you can also even stream us live on YouTube. But I'm very pleased to say that Claire joins me now. Claire, what a woman. You've done so much.
You give such a good build-up then. That was fantastic.
But honestly, you've done so much. I remember you in Brookie.
Do you know, Brookside seems like 10 lives ago now. Yeah. And you know what's interesting now? There's a whole generation, probably 2 generations, who don't really know what Brookside is. You know, and they've never heard of it. I think it finished about 2004.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
When I say Brookside, because the producers are a lot younger than me, they're half my age. We're the same age.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue.
Yeah, darling, you neither, darling. I had no idea. But honestly, the producers, they didn't have a clue. They hadn't got. I said Brookside. I was Brookside. Well, who was it that was under the patio? Under the?
Oh, that was the Anna Friel storyline, wasn't it? With Jordache, Trevor Jordache, wasn't it? Yeah. You see, I was a fan of the show before I went into it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, from Liverpool, you know, it was the beacon of Liverpool, this show, and it was groundbreaking drama, you know, it was amazing.
No, there was the first lesbian kiss, wasn't there?
Yeah.
On TV? I mean, that was amazing. It was like, oh!
I know, it was great, and then I got to do the second one.
I know.
You know, there was never a dull moment.
Did you enjoy it? No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you that. So you mentioned that this was something that you'd sort of watched and then you suddenly ended up on it. How did you end up with the job there?
So I auditioned for it, and then I auditioned for a part I didn't want, actually. There was a part to be in Mike Dixon's band, and I wanted that role, but I couldn't make that audition, so I auditioned for Jimmy Corkill's daughter. They told me I wasn't right for it. They wanted someone really rough and ready, and I was a bit glam, you know, and a bit... I wasn't right for that part, and anyway, I auditioned for it, and it was that thing of going in, not really wanting that role, and I got it. And then I did 2 episodes and went to work on cruise ships for 4 years.
That must have been exciting.
Well, that
I've
was
always
wonderful.
wanted to do cruise ships.
It was brilliant. I
tax-free and all that.
Well, that's it. Well, I travelled the world, you know, with my bedroom and did shows, and it was fantastic. So I did that, and then I wrote a letter back to the producers, Mal Young and Phil Redmond, and the day the letter landed was the day they were doing a future storyline meeting and moving Jimmy and Jackie into the close, and it was just that serendipity. If the letter had landed, it was the days we wrote letters. If the letter had landed a day later, I would have missed the boat with it.
Wow.
And it just, you know, it's just fate. And
interesting you mentioned Phil Redmond, because I wrote to him about Hollyoaks, and I remember saying, Professor Phil, how come there's no black people in Hollyoaks? I wrote to him because there were very few.
Well, really?
There really weren't any, and he actually replied.
Oh, he's wonderful, Phil.
He actually replied.
He's an amazing man. Yeah, he's an amazing man. He's done so much for the city as well of Liverpool. He's been so good to me, and he's so brilliant.
Yeah, and then I offered myself to do something there. He didn't take me up on that.
But he responded to you, you know, it took time.
I was impressed.
Yeah.
As I can remember, after Brookside, you were everywhere. You were on everything.
Well, I did the very first Celebrity Big Brother.
Yeah.
And at that time, there was no reality TV. It was for comic relief. None of us got paid. Vanessa Feltz, Jack Dee, Chris Eubank. And, it was... a massive thing at the time, because there'd been no jungle, no ice dancing, no Strictly, nothing like that. So it was a real event.
What was that like?
It was great. It really catapulted my career.
Yeah.
And I'd handed my notice in to leave Brookside before I went into Celebrity Big Brother. So it was nice I wasn't leaving Brookside saying I've got better things to do now.
Yeah.
Decided to leave Brookside when I had nothing, and I wanted to take a chance on getting into a musical, and then this happened, and then, you know, the world fell into my lap. 2001, that was.
So you've done bits of musicals.
Wow.
Talk to me about those, because you can sing. I wish I could sing.
Oh, I love it. I mean, this year, I started off this year doing 9 to 5, the musical, which was wonderful. That was such good fun. It was terrifying, because I had 6 days to learn it. The company was up and running and established. I was taking over Louise Redknapp, and I had 6 days to learn it and go in and do it. And you know, our brains kind of went to sleep in lockdown, didn't they? And to suddenly have this massive amount of script and routine to learn soon sharpened up. So that, you know, it's been a good year, doing 9 to 5, then straight into Proud, which is very different.
Yeah, talk to me about that.
Well, I love it.
To do stuff like that.
Because I started off a different type of cabaret, but I cut my teeth in the social clubs in Liverpool, where you have to interact with the audience, and it was old school cabaret. And suddenly cabaret has come back with a sexier slant to it. Because this show, it's burlesque, there's wonderful circus acts, there's world-class acts in this show. And I host the evening, chatting to the audience, interacting, singing, wearing fabulous, outrageous costumes. Oh, it's fabulous. And, you know, it's for me, I used to go there for a night out when Duncan James was doing, well, he's back on now, Duncan. And for me, it's the perfect night, because you sit and you have food. You don't have to leave your seat, and you can watch a show. I mean, what's not to like?
Isn't that fabulous?
Eat and watch an amazing show.
And the thing is, as I said, you and today I mentioned that we're half a century. Looking good on it, girl.
Are you 50 as well?
Yes.
You look amazing.
I'm 50.
Look at the little figure on you.
Well, I did.
You've got no middle-aged spread, have you? You look amazing.
It's a weighted hoop exercise. It will beat the flesh back.
Oh, really? Well, that's what I'm trying to do at the moment, but it's not coming off as quick as it used to.
I know. As you get older, these things happen, though, don't they? I mean, it's the way it is. So what about in terms of family, then? Do you have children?
I've got a 7-year-old son who's just the light of my life. I left it late. I was 43 when I had him, and he's just great. And it was wonderful, you know. Lockdown was good for me.
Yeah.
I feel a bit guilty saying that sometimes, because I was in a position where I was financially secure, so I was okay. And it was the first time I've not worked without guilt, because I've always been a workaholic.
Yeah.
So to suddenly, you know, not feel guilty for not working, it was great. And I mean, homeschooling was horrendous. But I just love the time out with my son, and he's just a joy. It's time we'll never get back. It was wonderful.
It's lovely. Sadly, we never get time back.
I know.
I wish I could have that time again. No, but it is interesting because I had my son Ivory. He's 4 now, and I had him at 4.
Okay, so you
so
were
there's old
late.
mum.
Yeah.
I have another child as well, but old mums. Was it difficult? Was it quite simple? Was it quite straightforward? Because a lot of women look and think, well, God, these women had their children older. Did you?
I loved it because I've done everything I want to do.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, I'm not chasing them, not looking over my shoulder, thinking I'm missing something.
Yeah.
I've had the most fulfilled, fantastic life, and this little boy's come along to my life, and I often think without him, my life would have been quite vacuous, really.
Yeah,
I feel very blessed that I could have him. And I was very blessed, and he's got a great family around him, and he's just, he's a joy. He's made me see things through new eyes.
Yeah.
You know, I see everything through new eyes now, and it's brilliant.
What would you say then has been, obviously he's your biggest achievement in life, for sure. I mean, my children are mine. But if you were to look at the thing that...
How old's yours? 4?
So I've got one who's 4
yeah.
and one who's 13.
Oh, OK.
See there, because she's a great babysitter. It's so good she helps. I can go upstairs and do stuff and she can help me out. So that is perfect. She needs to be paid for it, though, because she's just understood now. She has a Go Henry account. But
I've got a Go Henry for Jackson.
I know, it's great.
I don't know, we're allowed to sound like we're advertising. I'm not advertising. I'm not. But it's brilliant because it's made Jackson realise the value of money. Like today I said, your pocket money's gone on. He said, what have I got to do for it? And I gave him a chore to do. And he went, OK, Mummy, I've done it.
Very good.
And it's great. It's really good.
I love it when it sort of turns down a payment, when it says Africa's card has just been declined. She tried to spend more money than she's got. I thought it was so embarrassing for her. And then me and her dad both laugh out loud.
But that's good. That's good. Yeah, welcome to the real world.
That's good, isn't it? So for you then, your biggest lesson that you think you've learned that in your mind always sort of replays, because we always have these moments in our life where we think, OK, right, that's a message and a lesson. What
Do you know, it's funny. It was a lesson that I said to my friend the other day. My friend... Things are going very, very well for him at the moment, and he said, oh, I'm tired, and da-da-da. And I said, my mother said one thing to me once, at the height of my fame, when things were really, you know, busy, just after Big Brother and all that. I remember moaning to my mum, saying, oh, Mum, I'm tired, and this is happening, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. My mum went, if you don't like it, shut up and come back home to Liverpool. If you do, just shut up and get on with it, you know. Yeah. And it's such valuable advice, isn't it? If you don't like it, just come home, you know, shut shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If people want to catch you on this wonderful cabaret, where do they need to go? What's it called?
So Proud Cabaret, proudcabaret.com, and it's go to the website. I do Saturday nights at the moment. Duncan James is doing Thursdays. Amber Davis is doing Fridays, and but I would suggest coming to my show, of course. But no, it's a great. You know, they have great acts on there, and the whole show is wonderful. You know, Jess, who's our creative director, she's wonderful. She does a very wonderful act on a rocking horse. And then we got choreographer Dale and the dancers and Marie Del Rowe. I mean, the whole acts are world class. It's just fantastic.
Wow, Claire Sweeney, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank
you
you
so much for joining me outside.
Thank you.
That is the brilliant Claire Sweeney, fabulous woman. Well, listen, stay with me because we got loads on the way. Bill Browder with his book Freezing Order will be in the studio telling us all about it. It is one of the most brilliant books I've ever read. I'm in the middle of it now. Also coming up, the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should natural gas be reclassified as green energy? Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng wants the drilling of natural gas to be referred to as environmentally sustainable. Now, many experts claim gas to be a transition fuel towards lower carbon economies, as it emits half as much as coal and 30% less than oil. But as a non-renewable energy source, can you really call it green? I'll be asking, should natural gas be reclassified as green energy? But first, let's get some weather.
Definitely a change in the weather picture for us across the UK. Cloudy at times, scattered heavy, possibly thundery showers and sunny spells. Let's home in on the detail. So in the southwest, mostly dry tonight, plenty of warm spells. Cloudier in the east, the odd sharp shower as well. The southeast, cloudy, warm, muggy, a few showers with further heavy thundery ones arriving for the south as well. Let's look at South Wales. Well, that too will be cloudy with outbreaks of showery rain. turning heavy at times, also feeling rather muggy with some hill fog likely. And a similar story as well for the Midlands as we end the day. A cloudy picture with showers which could be heavy at times. Muggy here as well, murky conditions over the hills. And the northeast of England ending the day mostly dry but also rather cloudy. Bright or sunny spells and an isolated shower also possible towards the south of that region. Little changes in southern Scotland, mostly dry there, but rather cloudy too. The odd shower possible, along with some brighter spells if you're lucky, feeling very warm for most, and a rather cloudy but pleasantly warm evening across Northern Ireland. Brighter spells likely, mostly dry here, only an isolated shower likely in the area. So a muggy feeling tonight following for many across the UK, especially in the south. Further heavy, thundery showers for us all. And that's how the weather's looking overnight and into tomorrow morning.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle, and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's 21 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now it is time for our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should natural gas be reclassified as green energy? The government is reportedly intent on classifying natural gas as a green option for investors, despite the risk of inflaming tensions with climate campaigners. Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng is understood to be keen on listing the drilling of natural gas as environmentally sustainable. The combustion of natural gas for power and heating contributes to an immense amount of carbon dioxide emissions. However, many experts claim, excuse me, that's better. I was fighting through that. I thought it might come out. Sorry if you're listening, I don't mean to upset you there. Experts claim gas to be a transition fuel towards lower carbon economies, as it emits half as much as coal and 30% less than oil. But isn't it a step too far to classify it as a non-renewable source as green? Is Kwasi Kwarteng trying to have his green cake and eat it? Which would be interesting, because you shouldn't eat green cakes. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should natural gas be reclassified as green energy? I'm joined by Senior Lecturer in Sustainable Construction and Climate Change at the University of Sheffield, Hallam, John Grant. John, welcome. It's good to talk to you again. So what do you think? What do you think? Natural gas? Well, I mean, it is natural. It is it's not being tampered with. Is it green?
No, it's not green. No, it's not green. Not at all. If we're going to focus on this as an issue, it is about how much carbon dioxide we are emitting as a planet, And although gas does produce less than coal and oil, it still produces less. It is not my opinion, but the opinion of thousands of scientists, that we have to peak the amount of carbon dioxide we are emitting by about the middle of this decade. And from then on, we need to gently sort of reduce the amount. Now, if we continue to explore for more gas and oil in our North Sea, it is very unlikely that we're going to ramp back on that. Those companies need to make the money back on their investments. So this idea that it's slightly less worse is as ridiculous as an idea as preferring to be stabbed rather than being blown up. They're still going to kill us. It's still the wrong decision. What we need to do is to manage the current costs, help the people that are struggling. And I would say the way we do that is by reducing the price of energy for those people that don't use much energy and increasing the amount of cost for those who use a lot of energy. And that needs to be done.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I would say just have the same price, and then if you use more, you pay more. If you use less, you pay less. I mean, that seems pretty basic to me. But I wanted to bring you back, though, because to go green, to go green, there's a lot of, if you want to call it dirty energy, this natural gas. You're going to need all of that to get to the stage. So natural gas will be involved in the manufacturing or maybe even making of solar panels, the transporting of the panels from one place to another. You'll need fuel to fly the planes to actually create this. So in a way, you have to go dirty to get green in the first place. Green energy itself can't be, it needs to be created in a sense. So natural gas is a natural phenomenon, so fuel, petrol and things like that's created from dead bones from animals and minerals and things like that. So it is a natural gas. Surely we should use that resource.
Well, yes, of course. We are talking to each other on the backs of using fossil fuels. Without the concentrated energy of all of those fuels, we would not be where we are now. But now is the time to seize that challenge, and especially here in the UK, where we're so innovative, and actually pursue the alternatives to using that gas. And that's where we need to throw ourselves into it. We can't just say, oh, it'd be really hard to change, and so we shouldn't. And we shouldn't forget that, yes, natural gas is natural, although I would call it mineral gas rather than natural gas. But if it is released into the atmosphere, in the short term, it will actually warm the Earth 80 times worse than carbon dioxide. So it's not a perfect solution to where we're going, and we have to look at these alternatives, and they're out there. And get this, they are actually cheaper and they employ more people. And there are some heavy industries that are going to really challenge us.
You said they're cheaper. Well, what's cheaper than something that comes out of the earth and you don't have to create it or make it? It's there already. Surely we should use the...
Well, yeah, that's interesting, but they don't. It's not just lying around. You have to drill down to it. I think we've had a conversation about the environmental impacts around fracking as well, but out in the North Sea, it is not cheap to access that free energy. It's not free. Sunlight falling on us is also free. The wind blowing through lessening hair is also, free. And at the moment that technology is moving that way, there is a challenge with high energy industries such as making cement, bricks, ceramics, steel. But there are alternatives, and these need to be investigated and pursued because there's a massive profit there.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, you've touched on things that we currently don't know how to make without those things. So cement, as you pointed out,
we do. At the moment.
But we have, but at the moment is the moment. We have to deal with the moment, and the moment is now, which is why we're using the natural gas that is available now. And I personally think it should be reclassified as green so that we should actually reuse it. We talk about reusing things or using things that are there rather than creating them. I mean, at the moment, in order to produce electricity, whilst wind and other sources are great currently, we need natural gas and things like that to help us create those things. So we should be using what we have. People talk about fracking as well, using that natural gas from there, shale gas. Again, why shouldn't we use them? I hear you saying about CO2, but could we have perhaps made a miscalculation here? Maybe nature will go in a different way. I mean, we thought the Earth was flat at one point. Are you sure that we're right?
I'm absolutely sure. The last piece of research to come out from the UN was unequivocal. That's the phrase they used, and they also used sort of this idea that we are in an emergency now, and we just. I appreciate that it seems so seductive to keep to how we're currently doing things, but this is sending us down a path that we will not be able to recover from. We are already seeing significant shifts in our climate, and this is just the start. We're only at 1.2 degrees warming. It's 50-50 chance that we'll reach 1.5 1 year within the next 5 years. We are on a very knife edge, and the idea that we should, and I'm not saying that we should just stop gas, we need to ramp that down, and we need to prepare the alternatives. We can't just keep exploring, which is what this re-designation of a sustainable fuel would do. We'd continue as normal.
Ask finally then?
Business is normally killing us.
John, we're running out of time, so I want to ask finally, what makes you think that the planet wouldn't go that way in any case? Because we don't really understand fully the environment. Surely climate change is a natural phenomenon. Obviously it is. The climate will change. And we may do things to affect it, but the Earth always looks at something like homeostasis. So in the body, if you have too much caffeine, your body does this to rebalance it, and your body does that, and so on and so forth. There comes a point where you get to an age where those things just aren't going to happen simply because you're old and you have your lifestyle and your lifetime, and you can do things to try and help, but in the end, it has its natural end. Could it not be that the climate is moving in its natural process anyway, and we actually don't have any power really to stop it?
But we literally measured the changes from our actions. And yes, you are right, the climate does change naturally. But what we are doing is speeding up that change to, 200, 300, 400 times faster the amount of carbon in our atmosphere. And that is it's just physics that we are changing that rapidly. If our world was changing over tens of thousands of years, I would not be talking about this. I'd still want cheap energy for people to live their lives and a good lifestyle, but I wouldn't be concerned about a climate changing. And that's kind of how fast we've seen climate change in the past. But what we are looking at now is a change over decades rather than centuries. And that, the planet may survive that. But let me tell you, there are millions of species, and our society was really going to struggle with this. We can't run with business as usual. But the good news is that the alternative is actually a better way of life. If you're living in a house that doesn't have any bills, that's a better way of life. And we've been able to provide that for 20 years.
That would be a great way of life, a house with no bills. Where are you? This is another planet. That's what it would be, another life altogether, John. Frankly, listen.
I'll build one for you.
I'd love that, but you know what? They would tax the sun if they could, and they probably will. John, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us. That is John Grant, Senior Lecturer in Sustainable Construction and Climate Change. Well, let's see what you've been saying. Neil says, how can we reclassify a fossil fuel extracted from the ground to make it sound better, calling it green? How stupid. He thinks it's stupid. Chris says, when natural gas took over from coal gas, we were told that this would be the era of virtually free gas. It never happened. Now we're told wind is the answer, probably the biggest con ever. We need gas, and we have tons of it, so if we frack. Guy says, it is green until it's burned for fuel. Good point. Yes, keep those thoughts coming. We'll be discussing that. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's fast approaching 32 minutes after 5 o'clock. We'll continue with our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should natural gas be reclassified as green energy? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and also columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
And the top stories: NATO's Secretary-General says Turkey isn't looking to block Finland and Sweden's plans to join the alliance, and he's confident an agreement can be reached. His comments follow Finland confirming it will apply for NATO membership. Sweden's ruling Democratic Party has now said it wants to follow suit. Jens Stoltenberg also believes Ukraine can win the war against Russia.
Russia's war in Ukraine is not going as Moscow had planned. They failed to take Kiev. They are pulling back from around Kharkiv. But Ukraine stands. NATO is stronger than ever. Europe and North America are solidly united. Ukraine can win this war.
The DUP is warning that actions rather than words are needed from the government to break the Stormont stalemate. The Prime Minister will visit Northern Ireland tomorrow to speak to the main parties in a bid to restore power sharing. It comes as tensions build between the UK and the EU following concerns that Boris Johnson could try to introduce legislation to strip away elements of the Northern Ireland Protocol. And the British mountaineer Kenton Cool has successfully completed his record-breaking 16th summit of Mount Everest. The 48-year-old reached the summit overnight, marking the highest number of climbs by a non-Sherpa. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+, you're with GB News. And Nana Akua will be here after the break.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So, good afternoon. If you've just joined in, welcome on board. This is GB News on TV, online, on digital radio, and you can even stream us live on YouTube. I'm Nana Akua, and it is now time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should natural gas be reclassified as green energy? The government is reportedly intent on classifying natural gas as a green option for investors, despite the risk of inflaming tensions with climate campaigners. Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng is understood to be keen on listing the drilling of natural gas as environmentally sustainable. The combustion of natural gas for power and heating contributes to an immense amount of carbon dioxide emissions. However, many experts claim gas to be a transitional fuel towards lower carbon economies, as it emits half as much as coal and 30% less than oil. But isn't it a step too far to classify a non-renewable energy source as green? Is Kwasi Kwarteng trying to have his cake and eat it, or even his green cake. But if a cake is green, don't eat it. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should natural gas be reclassified as green energy? So let's find out what my panel make of that. I'm joined by consultant editor for the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and also columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy. Right, so Lizzie, I'm going to come to you first. Natural gas, what do you think?
I think it should be considered actually as a green energy. It's not as clean as wind or solar, but I think it should be considered into this new sort of like natural carbon society. And look, we've only have one planet. I think people do live like we have another planet to go to.
Well, there might be. I mean, if there was, I'd like to go to it.
But look, natural gas, it's the cleanest of all the fossil fuels, and I do believe, yeah, it is. And this is what, you know, but we've all got to do our bit. And I certainly do. You know, I do recycle football shirts now that are going into West Ham Football Club, would you believe? I think we all can do our bit to help the planet. And it is so important for the future and everything else. But, yeah, I say yes.
I couldn't care less if we reclassify it as green energy or not. What I think we should do, though, is get as much natural gas out of the North Sea oil fields as we can, because it's there, it's a great asset, and we should have been doing it for years and years. Too much reliance on wind, and often when there's no wind, the wind turbines don't work. When there's a lot of wind and there's excess wind capacity, they can't harness it.
That's right.
And also, last year, the European Union, in its infinite wisdom, shut down a number of natural gas projects. Brilliant. Which is why the European Union is responsible for paying £1 billion every day into the war criminal Putin's coffers for oil, energy and gas. We want to be away from that man's terrible... We've got to stop the reliance on Putin's Russia, but also, we should also, in this country, we should be getting the shale gas out of the country too. We should be self-sufficient in energy, because we can be, which means families watching this programme will not be paying 50% more for their energy bills now. They're going to go up again in the autumn. And while we're at it, Mr Chancellor Rishi Sunak, let's strip out the 25% green tax in your electric and gas bill, which will release money for every family immediately. Just do it for a year during the energy crisis, or maybe even for 2 years during the energy crisis.
Well, no, we should be OK, because it's given us a £200 loan that we have to pay back, even though the price will rise anyway, so it won't make any difference. It's nonsense.
And of course, you are going to get your £150 discount on your council tax if you're A to D. Most people don't even know what council tax band they're in, including me, I'm afraid to admit. And you were quite right to raise the fact 5% VAT can be chopped off our energy bills immediately. We can do that because we left the European Union. Hurrah, I voted to leave. It's one of the many reasons why.
Yes,
we have our own control over taxes.
Exactly, we have our own control, which is so important. But look at Finland. Look, we need to break away from Putin in any way. Every nation does. And they've, you know, said yesterday, I was listening, it was only 10% they were relying on them, actually, and they can find other ways. And it's so important that we cut Russia off in every single possible
But also,
way.
they say that it will upset the climate change activists. They're always going to be upset. They're never going to be content with what governments do. And this government's done a lot, actually, more than most. We are the third biggest supplier of wind power in Europe, not surprising with some of our politicians. But still, that's not enough. They're still going to stick their hands to doors and
microphones.
Oil tankers and microphones. Exactly. So I wouldn't worry what they think, which is why I wouldn't bother reclassifying it. Just get on and get it out of the ground.
Well, listening to John, he was talking about some sort of utopia, wasn't he, where we wouldn't pay anything for energy, and it's never going to happen.
No.
Whatever, even the sun, as I said, they'll tax it if they can. They'll tax however you harness it. I think, to be honest, I think people are slightly delusional if they think that we're going to stop the climate change in the way we are. It's almost like saying to everybody, look, I figure if we all put our hands out because the moon is falling and we're going to catch the moon and save the world. We're not. The planet is an organism on its own. It will do its thing. We can potentially help to rebalance in some ways, but it's like
Prince
trying
Charles,
to stop a runaway train. How
Prince Charles putting masks on cows.
Exactly.
I mean, it's crazy.
You know.
Cows grazing in fields, though, do contribute a lot of carbon dioxide.
But they have another end. Didn't Charles realise? You know?
But things like, so for example, I've heard that you could have fuel that doesn't emit carbon, and we don't need to go all this electric car route. I mean, if we take a look at some of the things we've decided to do, I mean, electric cars. Currently, China and also Russia are buying swathes of Africa for the minerals, so the cobalt, the lithium, all these things, and we foolishly seem to be distracted on completely looking at, we'll do renewable, but we'll end up with another paymaster, which could be even more devastating. We're not looking properly.
Apparently we've got to all have electric cars by the time we're 2030.
This makes no sense.
In industry, I don't have a car. I haven't had a car for 30 years. But it currently takes 45 minutes to charge a car.
It does.
And there is no infrastructure for charging across the country. They're not in place. The target won't be met, but it's too ambitious.
Yeah.
And we've all got to get rid of our gas boilers by 2035.
And all the energy to make it in the first place. So.
Well, the most destructive thing in terms of environment is waste. So throwing away a good car just for simply because of the carbon, when actually there are fuels that don't. I've heard that there are green fuels that don't really emit carbon. So I think we're not looking at what we have. We could utilise what we have. Even hydrogen would be better, but the hydrogen needs to be sourced from a renewable or a safe source of electricity. The electricity that you make. There's all these different ways of doing it and offsetting it and making it sound.
And of course, the little UK contributes so little in the context on the world stage. China, India, who take no notice of any of these international treaties.
Well, that's it.
And we're punishing families who are really struggling to pay their bills at the moment with these huge energy costs. I think it's wicked, actually.
Well,
and when we've potentially got all this gas on our doorstep, which could cut their bills enormously and create jobs.
Well, there's only one world and one planet, you know, and I do think that people do not really think about it at times. You know?
Well, I'd say they are taking notice, China, Russia, India, and they're buying the things that we're going to need later on. But this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome on our Great British Voice, your opportunity to be on the show. Tell us what you really think about the topics we're discussing. Let's have a chat with Simon Kelsey. He's a B&B owner and a property developer from Hull. Welcome on board, Simon. What's your view?
Hi, Nana. Thanks for having me on. Well, listening to you all obviously agree with the government line that maybe climate change doesn't exist. Like, you're all arguing whether or not it matters. You know, we don't use very much compared to everybody else. Now, I don't know. I'm not a climate expert, and I don't think any of you are. But the government are listening to lots of climate experts, and I'm guessing they've found one nut job who said, oh, well, maybe it'll all just level out. Maybe it'll all just go down again, and we can just use what fossil fuels we've got. I think that the majority of the scientific evidence suggests that burning natural gas will contribute to a critical level of climate change. Now, like I say, I'm not an expert. I'm just listening to what the experts are saying. I think they're probably right. So what we're doing is saying we need more gas. Now, there are some really good arguments for using more gas, like your commentators have said. We don't want to use Russian gas. We don't want to find ourselves not having any gas at all or not having any energy. So we do need gas. We need every source of fuel that we can use, probably, but not by calling it green. It is not green. We know it isn't green. We know that if you're calling it green and you're the government trying to sell it as a green product, you're kidding yourself. And I think we all know that.
Well, they're possibly calling it green so they can have their green tax as well. Listen, it's good to talk to you. Thank you so much, Simon. Really good to talk to you. That's a Great British Voice. Right, well, listen, we're hurtling towards the end of the show, so it's now time for Bookmark. Now, this is the part of the show where I highlight a fantastic book that's been released, and this week I'm joined by the wonderful Bill Browder, following his explosive international bestseller, fabulous book, Freezing Order. He had that fabulous book. This book, honestly, I'm reading it now. It's amazing. It reminds me of, I don't know whether you've ever read some of the Sidney Sheldon books, Master of the Game, this sort of spy thriller type stories, but this is a true story. It chronicles how Vladimir Putin became the #1 enemy how he became Vladimir Putin's #1 enemy by exposing Putin's campaign to steal and launder hundreds of billions of dollars and kill anyone who stands in his way. And I'm very pleased to say that Bill joins me in the studio. Bill, thank you so much for joining me.
Great to be here.
Well, Bill, listen, I heard you doing an interview somewhere else, and I thought, you know what, I have to talk to you. Fascinating stuff. So give us some idea of your background and how you came to be even in Vladimir Putin's radar.
Well, I have a very unusual background. Originally from America, my grandfather was the head of the American Communist Party. I rebelled against my family and put on a suit and tie and became a capitalist. And when the Berlin Wall came down, I went to Russia and I set up this investment fund. I gathered a bunch of capital from the West, invested in Russia, and then I discovered that all the oligarchs were stealing all the money. And so I started protesting the stealing and the corruption, and they were all partners with Putin, and I was expelled from the country. My offices were raided. I had a young lawyer named Sergei Magnitsky. He investigated the crime and exposed it, and he was subsequently arrested, tortured for 358 days, and killed.
He was quite young as well.
He was 37 years old. And since his murder,
I've made it my life's work to go after the people who killed him and make them face justice. And for the last 12 years, that's what I've been doing. It's culminated in something called the Magnitsky Act, which freezes the assets and bans the visas of people who do this type of thing, including the people that killed Sergei Magnitsky. And the Magnitsky Act exists in the United States, here in the UK, in the EU, in Canada, and Australia, and other countries. And this is the template that's now being used to freeze the assets of the oligarchs. And Vladimir Putin is very mad.
Wow. Have you ever actually met Vladimir Putin?
I've never met Vladimir Putin, but I've been in a sort of head-to-head fight with him for the last 12 years. He's been chasing me around the world with death threats, with kidnapping threats. They've tried using Interpol 8 times to have me arrested.
Really?
I was even arrested in Madrid, Spain,
Yes,
a couple of years ago. He's a very vindictive man. He never wants anybody to humiliate him, and he was very humiliated by what I've done.
Well, the book is, honestly, it's gripping, and it's a true story. This is the thing. Have you said that you know, obviously he's been trying to threaten you and going through every single way to try and get hold of you. Have you ever been in a situation where he's actually managed, because he's been poisoning people and everything?
I've never been poisoned. I think the way what his perfect scenario, if he could have it, is to get me on an Interpol warrant. You know, I'll be traveling somewhere in Germany or France or something like that. Get me on Interpol, extradite me back to Russia, torture me in prison so I make some kind of false confession to say that all of my allegations for the last 12 years were untrue, and then feed me something in prison so I die a slow death over a 6 or 9 month period. That's his, and a plausibly deniable death. That's his perfect scenario.
Very odd man, really, in a way. Almost like he doesn't value life at all.
In my analysis, if you were to look at the physician's desk reference of different diagnoses, and you look at his characteristics, he's a psychopath. He's a man who doesn't have any empathy, no conscience, no respect of rules, and he only cares about himself and his own well-being and survival. And I think that that's what everything is about. And in fact, this war is just about that.
Well, I haven't got to the end of the book, so don't spoil it for me, but I don't think you will anyway. Do you think there's any chance? Because obviously, as we know, some of the oligarchs are dying now. I think there's been 7 so far that have been killed. I think they've been killed, although there's been a different story. Towards the end of the book, what happens? I can't help it. I couldn't help it. Cut to the chase.
The punchline is I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm alive. I'm standing up. I continue to speak out. I continue to call out Putin's corruption. And hopefully people listen in governments around the world. I've been calling for these sanctions. They're starting to sanction these people. The oligarchs hold Putin's money. We've sanctioned about 35 of them so far. There's 118. So in total, a lot more to go. And we got to stop, as you were saying before, we got to stop buying their oil and gas. Every day we send them $1 billion, and every day it costs $1 billion for them to kill Ukrainians with their invasion. We got to stop that, and it's not our responsibility. It's Germany, Italy, Austria, those countries, but we have a role to play here as well. And if we can starve Putin dry of all this money, so he just doesn't have the money to kill people, that will be the end of him.
Well, Bill, your fabulous book, Freezing Order. Before you go, can you just sign it for me, please? Nana, 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 AKU.
It would be
there you
my
go.
pleasure.
That's Bill Browder. His fabulous book, Freezing Order, the ultimate thriller, but it's actually a true story. Thank you so much, Bill, for joining me. It's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you. Wow. Right, well, it's time for Supplement Sunday, the part of the show where me and my panel look at some of the other stories making the papers today. I'm joined by consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearson, columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy. Lizzie, we're going to start with you first, your story about police dogs.
Oh, yes, police dogs. Now, this is, because I'm a dog lover, I really am, and it's saying the looming cost of living crisis means that retired police dog prospects are increasingly uncertain, with fears that former service animals will soon become too expensive to adopt, which is really sad. So around 200 dogs retire from policing each year, with many finding homes with former handlers or police officers. But because of the dogs' strenuous working lives, they're prone to conditions like arthritis and other conditions, making it impossible for owners to get insurance, which breaks my heart.
It's so sad. I mean, do you remember that dog, Finn? He was lovely. He saved his owner's life with a knife. He got stabbed with a knife. I mean, he was a very smelly dog. I can remember I had him in the studio. I was like, him out of there. But I thought you were talking about Andrew. Not Andrew, no, Finn the dog. I mean, he's lovely, though, if you are watching us. But no, he was a lovely dog. Surely they should have a pension for police dogs.
These dogs do such amazing work. I mean, incredible work.
And they often get decorated, and they are heroic.
Aww.
And they're devoted. But, you know, they live in the garden with the police minder. They're not allowed in the house. So when they retire, that's a chance for them to be with the family, in the bosom of the family. So it's very sad.
And
maybe
they deserve
can't
that.
Handle it, though. Maybe they can't handle it. But, get me out of here, away from these people.
No, they deserve a good home and a good rest after all their hard work. I mean, they save lives, solve crimes. They're incredible. That's a very sad story for me.
Right, Andrew, what have you got?
Can I just mention on Bill Browder?
Yes.
I interviewed a former ambassador to Russia who told me, I said, what was it like being in the room doing business with Putin? He said two things. You look into his eyes, they're dead. Because dead eyes are evil eyes. So the other thing was there wasn't a single line on his face, so you see no expression. Botox within an inch, a centimetre of his life. So there's this great hard man of communism who's a vain, pompous peacock who spent thousands on plastic surgery. Talking of Russians, this is quite funny. Harrods are writing to their high-end Russian customers, of which there are many saying, you can't buy a thing here unless anything over £300, forget it. Don't think you can buy much in Harrods for anything less than £300.
No more cashmere,
it's part of the trade embargo, which is great. Russians have got to know it's not personal, but they are part of a pariah state. And this is a very important statement by Harrods because that will cost them money, because you see a lot of Russians in Harrods spending money. You've got to boycott all Russians. I don't buy Russian vodka anymore. You can buy Polish vodka, I've discovered. But that's all right.
Polish,
I checked.
They're very
good Polish
But
vodka.
we can all do our bit by not buying Russian goods. So we can all do our bit.
So you're going to have to buy not Russian caviar, Lizzie.
I will do that indeed.
The Germans are going to have to stop buying Russian oil and gas.
Yeah, well,
the Italians.
As I said earlier about, so the EU closed down all these natural gas things last year, and they're spending $1 billion a day with Putin. So Mariupol is being bombed with EU oil and gas money. Clever, aren't they?
Yes, indeed.
That's why they got nil point.
That's why France and Germany are at the bottom of the polls in the Eurovision. I'm sorry.
I know, isn't it? But anyway, I'm really pleased that Ukraine won, though. That's exactly right.
Well
and UK came second.
And it was
the
a
best
good
combination.
Song.
Sam Ryder, if you're listening, we love you. Well done.
How
Very
does any
proud.
man get to a note that high?
Well, I'll show you later.
Oh, really? Well, that was a proposition in itself. Wow, Lizzie. Well, let's have a look, because on today's show we've been asking, are the Conservatives the new high tax party? Well, according to our Twitter poll, what do you think? Give us a number, Andrew.
Well, it should be 85-90%, because I'm afraid they are.
Yeah,
Lizzie,
I agree with Andrew, totally.
Well, I'm going to go for, it's 70.3.
Well.
It's gone up by 0.3. 70.3% of you say yes and 29.7% of you say no. Well, listen, it's been a fabulous show. I'm going to say thank you so much to my amazing panel, consultant editor for the Daily Mail, Andrew Piss. Thank you very much, Andrew. It's been a pleasure to see you.
Pleasure to be back.
And also columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure as well. And as ever, thank you at home for your company too. Now listen, if you've missed the show, you can catch up via the GB News app, where you can catch me and all the other shows and interact with those live, or you can carry on streaming the programmes through YouTube. Now there's so much still to come on GB News. Later on, we've got Ministry of Offence. I'll be back next Friday at 4 o'clock. Make sure you join me there. I'll see you then. Have a fabulous week, and I'll leave you with the weather forecast.
Definitely a change in the weather picture for us across the UK. Cloudy at times, scattered heavy, possibly thundery showers and sunny spells. Let's home in on the detail. So in the southwest, mostly dry tonight, plenty of warm spells. Cloudier in the east, the odd sharp shower as well. The southeast, cloudy, warm, muggy, a few showers with further heavy thundery ones arriving for the south as well. Let's look at South Wales. Well, that too will be cloudy with outbreaks of showery rain, turning heavy at times, also feeling rather muggy with some hill fog likely. And a similar story as well for the Midlands as we end the day. A cloudy picture with showers which could be heavy at times. Muggy here as well, murky conditions over the hills. And the northeast of England ending the day mostly dry but also rather cloudy. Bright or sunny spells and an isolated shower also possible towards the south of that region. Little changes in southern Scotland, mostly dry there,